This may be my most insane reading idea ever. However, I still want to do it. So, I'm excited. Now, I don't know exactly where this idea came from, but I remember like a week and a half ago, I was watching a Sarah vlog where she read her name. So, like for S, she read a book that started with S, a book that started with A, and so on. And I think this might be where that stemmed from. But you know, I kind of need to tell you what it is in order for you to like understand what's happening. I'm gonna read my way through the entire alphabet because I'm insane. For those of you who don't know, in the English alphabet there are 26 letters, and I cannot read 26 books in a week. So this is going to be split up over multiple parts. I don't know how many, but it's going to be a lot. But with that being said, I am actually very, very excited for this. I am hoping that I can get halfway through the alphabet by the end of December, which gives me 2.5 months, which is a little bit insane. However, I still think I can do it. But I mean, there's really not much more to explain about this idea. I'm going to work my way through the alphabet, reading one book where the title starts with the letter that it corresponds to. So, like for B, I could read like The Bone Witch, The Bad Ones. I think that might be a movie. For C, I could read The Cruel Prince, Circe. Like, you get the vibes. Now, there are two exceptions that I am making because I know my bookshelves and I kind of roughly know what's on it. If the book starts with the word the or the word or anything like that, I can skip that word and go to the next. For example, the title The Cruel Prince, I can take out the and do Cruel Prince for C. Does that make sense? Because I have so many books that start with the or and it's kind of insane. And while I could go looking, because I'm sure I got one for every letter, I'm gonna be very biased with my choices. I'm gonna be so honest with you. My second thing is for letters that I don't have any books on. For example, X. I don't know if I have a book that starts with X. I can go by the author's last name. Now, I have not planned this out. I have not planned out every single book that I'm going to read for every single letter except for A. Obviously, I've already picked A's book. But because of that, this might change as we go on, okay? And no one can get mad at me. But starting point, those are my rules. Now that we have established base ground what's going on, let me introduce you to our first book for the letter A, which is going to be Assistant to the Villain. When I said that I wanted to start doing this, I knew I had to start with this one because this book is on my 2024 TBR and it's October and I still haven't read it, and the sequel just came out, and I just watched an interview where Miss Hannah, the author, was talking about book 3. So this one was picked for me technically and literally. For the other letters, I am hoping that we will go pick one together off my TBR cart or my shelves, just depending on what I got. But obviously, I know what we're reading for A. So I'm very excited to read this. I really don't know much about this other than when it first came out, the internet was obsessed with it, more specifically TikTok, and everyone's saying it is so funny and it's like a comical, she works for the villain as the assistant, right? So I'm very excited. I'm hoping it's like not an enemies to lover, but like an adversaries to lover, you know, like a kind of like a workplace romance, honestly, which is weird for me. But it's got the fantasy element. Like I am overjoyed, thrilled for this book. However, for whatever reason, the shape of this book does not sit correctly with my brain. Plus, I've already looked at how long the prologue is, and when it's a long prologue, it stresses me out to read it in paperback form. Don't ask why. Don't ask why. I don't know. So for only the prologue section of this, I'm going to read it on my Kindle because it is on Kindle Unlimited. I also read a lot at night in the dark, so I will probably be reading more of this book on my Kindle than the actual physical copy, but I do have it, and it is on my TBR. I'm not cheating, okay? I don't know why I would be cheating. One of the rules isn't it doesn't have to be for my TBR. Okay, I'm officially going insane and this intro is way too long. So let's go get started with reading Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Meyer. I really hope I pronounced her last name right. I can't be bothered to bring my microphone out for this, but I've literally only read the prologue in chapter 1 and I am obsessed. I think this might be the first book in a really long time that I am like in it to freaking win it, dude. I quite literally had to stop myself mid chapter because I just kept reading. I just kept going. Speaking of just continuing to go, I am quite literally in the middle of chapter 17 at the moment. However, I did opt to read this completely on my Kindle. I normally don't do that with books that I have physical copies of because I like to feel the book in my hand, but something about the sizing of this book is messing with my brain and I feel like I can't read it, which is so dumb. But I'm still having a fun time on here on Kindle Land. It's freaking joyous. Obviously, my thoughts on this book right now are pretty dang clear. I am thoroughly enjoying myself. I understand why people like this so much because it genuinely is astonishing. Astonishing, astounding. I don't know. I'm trying to think of descriptive words that start with A that mean really good because get it? A, reading through the alphabet. I think I'm cool. Anyways, I'm about 115 pages into the villain, and like I said, I'm very much enjoying myself. Evie and Tristan are like the perfect dynamic that I love reading about in like romance books, okay? And they made it freaking magical. And it's not like most of the fantasies that I read where the romance is like a subplot. I feel like it's the main plot, right? And I'm a great especially when I found out that we get Tristan's point of view every now and again, and we get to know. Oh my god. So I promise this isn't a spoiler, but I cannot stop thinking about when Evie and Tristan met that guy in the tavern, and the dude said to Tristan, "You're fucked," and he's like, "I know." And because of the relationship that they have, I think it's like a really cute moment, and like this book has me giggling and kicking my feet and might make me need to go on like a romance bend for a while because I have never felt so fulfilled in my life. I love reading romance books, dude. But like I said, I am halfway through chapter 17 and I am totally planning on sitting down and reading more of it right now. However, it is like 9:45, which means the dragon lights will be turning off soon, so the lighting in here is going to change dramatically, but that still doesn't really matter for me because I'm reading on my Kindle. But it just means you're gonna get a lot more night content because I have no intentions to put this book down. Absolutely none. So with that, I'm gonna go back to my reading. I'm very excited. I'm loving this. Absolutely loving it. Mwah. Chef's kiss. I know we are meeting in the same exact spot as last night. However, I do just want to say that I do leave my bed. I do leave my room. And I do leave my house. I don't really know why I felt the need to justify that to you when all that you do when you read is sit or stand or do nothing else. So, but I have been moseying my way through this book. I am currently on chapter 29. That is the next little bit that I have to read. According to my Kindle, that is 53% through the book, but according to my Goodreads, it's 43%. However, when I look at my physical copy, this is what I have left. And I think it's like 53%. So I don't really know. I have about 130 pages left, I think is what I discovered when I went through and counted it. But guys, it's good. Guys, of course it's good. Of course it's good. I am actually so incredibly happy that I like this one. I think this may be the first TikTok recommended book that I have like thoroughly enjoyed the entire time. No complaints at all whatsoever. And I'm really hoping it stays that way because this book is genuinely so endearing to me. As I've already stated, I am reading this entirely on my Kindle just because me holding a book like this doesn't feel right to my brain, like the size of the book. I know it's really silly and really stupid seeing as most of the time I'm actually reading hardcover books, but I don't know. I'm just not vibing with that. Nonetheless, our plot is moving forward. We are discovering more about the thing we're trying to figure out. Is it on the back? Okay, so it's not on the back, but the like main mission of Evie's job right now is, moving forward, we're discovering more things. However, I'm gonna be so honest with you when I say that I'm really not like thoroughly paying attention to that part of the book. The part that I am thoroughly invested in is the relationship between our two main characters. And luckily for me, that is largely what this book follows and revolves around. So, having the time of my life. But obviously, I'm gonna go continue reading Assistant to the Villain. I don't know exactly what point I'm gonna read to before we meet up again. I might go all the way to chapter 50, because then that means we have 10 chapters left of the book. I just love Tristan and Evie's relationship. It is beautiful, and I could not have asked for anything more from this book. So, however, I am going to go ask more from this book as I continue to read it right now. Okay, so I think it's like a day later, but I just got the chance to sit down with Assistant to the Villain and like binge read it for like an hour and a half. And I just finished reading at chapter 46, which I know is a little bit earlier than when I said we were going to meet up and talk about it. But guys, I loved that chapter and hated it. I hate Tristan. I don't hate him. God, I want them to be together. I just want them. I want them to be happy. I want it to go right. I want it to be good, and that's all I want from this book at this point. I just want them to get together. I don't think that they're going to, seeing as this is it a trilogy or is it a series? Either way, there's at least 3 books. Their romance aside, the plot is still plotting, but it's not really going anywhere as of right now. We don't really know anything more about what we're trying to discover. But if it isn't obvious, I really don't care about that. I just love the character development in this. I love I'm reading this for the characters, okay? I'm not really reading it for the plot, and I knew I was going to going in, so I don't really care that we're not progressing in that aspect as much as like some people might want it to. You know, I don't know. I haven't actually seen anybody else read this. Like, I know people have. It's very popular, but I haven't like divulged it. You get what I'm saying? But I officially have 13 chapters of Assistant to the Villain left, which I think is about an hour and a half, and I'm not tired yet. So I'm gonna sit down and finish reading Assistant to the Villain. Of course I'm gonna read it on my Kindle. But look at how much little I got left. I'm so excited. I'm excited because the second book is already out and I already own it. So if this one ends up being really good, and if I need to go like binge read that one after finishing this, I'll be okay. But I do hope that's not the case, because I'm not supposed to be just reading this series in this video. But that's the point that I'm at, mentally, physically, and emotionally. I am very excited to dive back into the wonderful world of Evie and Tristan, so that is exactly what I'm going to go do. I went through like the 7 stages of grief when reading the last 10 chapters of this book. And I mean like all 7. Are there 8? Maybe there's 8. I don't know. However many there are, I went through them all. I genuinely love this book so much. Like, this might be one of my favorite reads of October so far, which is saying a lot. The plot twist of who ended up being the person who we were trying to discover, oh my gosh, would not have seen that in a million years. Would not have seen that. Though it does make sense, but I wasn't like paying attention to that part of it, you know? I was very much like into the romance rather than the actual like. But nonetheless, I don't think I would have seen it coming either way, honestly. I really like this. I think they need to kiss. When reading this book actually reminds me a lot of Legends of Lattes, and not because they're making a cute little coffee shop, but in the fact that this felt like a cute, cozy fantasy romance to me. Obviously, it's a lot more revolving around killing than a cozy romance probably should be, cozy fantasy romance should be, but it gave me the same vibes. Although this one is much more humor filled. Like, I was giggling reading this book, like laughing out loud at the things that especially Evie says, and Kingsley, the little frog, this dude. He's hilarious. I think this is a work of art. I love this book. I love how we progressed through the two characters and we got both of their point of views. And I love how we see the like love that they have for each other blossom, and like the friendship too. I think that's so sweet. I loved it all the way around, you guys. I did. So, you know, obviously Assistant to the Villain got a pretty high rating for me. It got a 4 out of 5 stars. I really don't think I'm going to change that rating, and I normally don't change my ratings. I normally rate it right after I finish the book, and that's how I feel, you know. It never really changes, and I stand by that. But this was so good. This was so good. This was so sweet, and I loved it so much. I really did. So ta-da! Book 1 of 26 of the alphabet is officially done, which means we are moving on to letter B. Now, I actually have 2 books on my monthly TBR that start with B, and The Bone Witch by Rin Shapiro. And I was totally going to pick one of these to read next, like, you know, because obviously it's on my TBR. It's October 20th, and I haven't started my TBR yet this month. Actually, I'm gonna regret that later. But I actually sat down and read the backs of these books. Like, I actually went, okay. And while they both sound interesting, I cannot commit to a 450 or a 500 page novel right now. I really cannot sit down and commit to one of these. So I'm thinking, instead of reading one of these that are on my TBR, we go over to my middle school shelf and pick a book I've been carrying around since middle school. So let me take you over to where those books reside. So I obviously do not access these books very much, so they do live in the dark precipices of our bookshelves, aka the place I never go to, aka the bottom of the bookshelf in the corner. It is so quiet back here. I feel bad speaking right now, but I'm thinking we pick a book from here that will be a quick read. You can't. Let me bring you in here. Okay, I found you a new angle because clearly you couldn't see in the other spot. But this right here is a like 400 books that I've been carrying around since middle school, and I don't think I've read read maybe 5 of these. And obviously I kept them because they have a lot of sentimental value. And I'm not going to pick one that I've read before, but I'm hoping there is a really quick book starting with the letter B that I can read in here. Just scanning the shelves, there are a couple of books in here that do start with B. There's Butterflies, The Buried, B, but they all are kind of longer books, and I was hoping for like maybe 200 pages. Behind the Canvas is one I've been carrying around for a really long time, but again, it's a pretty big book. I'm wanting a book I can sit down and binge read tonight, you know, like a 200-page book. B, 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 B. If there are 9 here that start with B, I'm gonna lose it. Okay, I went through and found 3 books, none of which are super duper small. Well, except the Bicycle Spy, and I'm thinking we pick from one of these. The longest one is going to be The Bravest Princess. Oh, it's more than 200. It's like 250 pages. And I remember being really hyped about this one when I was in middle school, but never actually picking it up. Next up, we have Breadcrumbs. I don't know anything. Ooh, I don't like the font. How big is it? Oh no, that's 300 pages. We're not going to read Breadcrumbs. I lied. Breadcrumbs is bigger than The Bravest Princess. And then the last one we have is The Bicycle Spy, which I know revolves around the Nazis in World War II. That's a timeline. When does the book actually end? Brief history. Okay, this book has 15 chapters and it is 176 pages. I think I might go with this one. This is one of those books I've literally been carrying around since middle school, and look at this. It's got like the little scholastic grading part of it. It appeals to 4th to 6th graders, and it's the reading level of a 5th grader. I think I'll be able to comprehend this. I think this is the book I'm going to go with because I genuinely need like a really quick palate cleanser from a bunch of the bigger books I've been reading. So I think we're going to go with The Bicycle Spy. You may not count this because it's for middle school, but it's been on my TBR since middle school, okay? So I'm counting it. We're reading The Bicycle Spy. I'm going to see how far we get tonight. I don't think it's going to be very far. I normally don't enjoy embarrassing myself on the internet, but I do just want to say that I spent almost 30 minutes trying to open my tiny microphone case because I just put lotion on my hands. I'm being dramatic. It was more like 3 minutes, but that was still a very embarrassing 3 minutes of my life. Either way, we are here to talk about the book I just finished, which is The Bicycle Spy. I thought about maybe checking in with you during this book, but I'm going to be so real with you when I say that this is for middle schoolers, and obviously it wasn't anything out of this world extraordinary. Really quick premise of the book, just in case you are interested in reading it. His name is Marcel. I believe he is 12. His parents own a bakery, and they put messages into their bread to deliver to people because they're part of the resistance against the German army soldiers for World War II. Marcel finds out and continues to deliver these notes and letters in order to actually help one of his friends who is a Jew and has to escape. They live in France, so France. After reading The Tattoos of Auschwitz, I think a week and a half ago, this one hit home. I'm getting back into my historical fiction era, which is really weird. I haven't had a historical fiction era since I was in 6th grade, but I did like this. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Either way, we are going to pick our third and final book of today's video, which is going to be The Letter C. I've been sitting here for a little bit thinking about what mood I am reading-wise, and I think I am in a fantasy mood, so let's look at my fantasy shelf. Okay, so this right here is my fantasy shelf. It's literally all fantasy except for the middle is my special editions, which happen to mostly be fantasy. And then I have 3 science fiction books down in the corner. Can you tell what my favorite genre is? I do want to read a fantasy, I know that much, but I do not want to start another series, so I don't really know exactly what I'm gonna read because I don't really know what's on here, if I'm honest with you guys. I could continue to read ACOTAR and read A Court of Mist and Fury. However, I don't think I have the brain power to sit down with that 700-page novel at this moment in time. Plus, I kind of want to make it a separate video because I'm reading ACOTAR as a spoiler reading vlog type situation. We have The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, but like I said, I don't want to start another series. I'm in the middle of, I'm not even kidding you, 18, so I'm going to put this guy back. I feel like every single fantasy book is part of a series. We have Crossings by Alex Landrig. However, this might be a choose your own ending thing, which I hate. I am not seeing anything else in this cabinet that starts with C, so let's go to this one. If I'm honest, I'm getting a little bit worried because I thought I had a lot more eligible fantasy books. C as in cat, C as in the Cabinet of Dr. Len. I'm pretty dang sure Preston and Child have written like 26 books. I know you don't have to read them in order, but I need to because I just need to. So obviously I can't read that one. I could read Children of Blood and Bone. I believe that's the first one, but I literally just said I don't want to start another series. So my girl Cassandra Clare over here, I could read Chain of Gold, but then again, beefy book, also a series. Don't want to do that. Do I really have nothing else? Daughter, Darkness, Shadow, House. I honestly forget about the books that are on this shelf because it's hidden. I have so many books on this shelf, it's ridiculous. I've already read Caraval. That's single-handedly the trilogy that got me back into reading. Really? Nothing? Ooh, what are you? I found one. I don't want to know what you're about. I just want to know if you're part of a series. If you don't know me, I hate reading backs of books, but I just want to know if this is part of a series or not. There's stuff in the back of the book about the zodiac signs. Oh, it's tarot, and I think it's a standalone. Do I have the brain power for tarot right now? I mean, honestly, it doesn't look like I have really another option. I'm kind of, unless I want to read a different genre, but I kind of want to dive into a fantasy world. Beyond the Closed Doors of, is it The Closeteers? I probably did not say that title correctly. I think this looks quite entertaining and like something I would want to read right now. So I think we're going to read The Closeteers. I don't know how to pronounce the title. I'll see if I can figure it out. Yep, totally down for this. Okay, let's go start reading our C book. The audiobook helped me. It's pronounced The Cloisters. Okay, so welcome to book talk time. So I was able to find an audiobook version of this book from my library, which worked great for me to start reading this because I had a sweater that I needed to finish crocheting, which is what I was just doing. I finished my sweater and I was listening to The Closeteers. I still don't know how to say it while doing that. I listened to the first 8 chapters of this book, which is the first 90 pages, and I cannot stand it. The premise of this sounded really interesting. It was her and a group of researchers who found like this magical tarot deck. We are almost 100 pages into a 300-page novel, and we've only talked about tarot deck, like magical elements of it, twice. There are some conversations that our main character Anne has overheard that have been like, oh, you know, we need to let her down the secret. But that was 50 pages ago and we're not progressing anymore. So this book is getting a big old DNF from me. Just in general. I will not be coming back to this book at any time. I am all for a book with a slow moving plot and something that progresses slowly, but this is not progressing in what it has like mainly advertised itself to be. It's just a lot more of the main character talking about how her life was really sad before she got this internship position in New York and how she doesn't want to go back to it, you know? So I am DNFing this, and I'm still in a fantasy mood, but the rest of my fantasies that start with C are series, and I'm not starting a series right now. So I took a little waddle over to my other books and found one that we're going to read instead. This is Counting to Perfect by Suzanne Lafleur. That is not her last name. Suzanne Lafleur. Yes, this is another book from my middle school stack, but after reading that, I can't. This book is only 200 pages, which is good because I think I genuinely need to like get books read right now. Like I think I need the, what is it called? The adrenaline rush from finishing another book and liking it. So, hoping that's what this does for me. But I'm very upset it's not a fantasy. This is definitely just a cute little book for middle schoolers. So, I'm gonna go read Counting to Perfect and I'll let you know how it goes. The more that I read through my middle school books, the more that I realize the books that I picked out in middle school go into two very different categories. Category A being like fantasy and doesn't pertain to real life at all, and then category B, like this one, that pertains to very real and very raw stories that have me tearing up as an 18-year-old when this was meant for 10-year-olds. In Counting to Perfect, we followed Cassie during her summer of going into 8th grade, where she struggles a lot with feeling seen in her family because her older sister, who hasn't even graduated high school yet, well, just graduated high school, had a kid. While that specific storyline is not something I can relate to in my life, a lot of the things that were said in this 12, 13-year-old girl's perspective were things I related to, weirdly. Cassie kept talking about how she felt like invisible to her family and just like her opinion didn't matter. And while I think this attributes a lot to my depression and nothing having to do with my family situation because my mom is always there to hear me out, I was crying. I was literally almost crying over this book. Even though the main point of this book was not the fact that Cassie couldn't be heard, but it was her rebonding with her older sister, I think that that is the part of the book that stuck with me, and the part that's going to stick with me is more Cassie's like emotional value to this book. And even though this book is technically made for kids, I am gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Most of the books I read from my middle school era don't get above a 3, but this one I feel like deserves it, should I say present tense? Rephrase. I didn't love it. I liked it, but I think that the messages, spoke to me as a person. But with that being said, we have officially read our way through the first 3 letters of the alphabet. These books were honestly an emotional roller coaster, and I don't know how I am still standing. So, I'm very excited for this idea slash project moving forward. I think it's going to be really interesting to see the books that I pick up throughout the months that I do this, because there's no way, and heck, I'm getting this done by the end of 2024. That was originally my goal when I came up with this idea in the beginning of October. I'm like, oh, I can finish it by 20. Girl, no. No. You read 80 books a year. Please lower your expectations. Nonetheless, I think this was a really great introduction to it, and I look forward to working our way through it in 2025, because that's absolutely what we're going to be doing. Which is insane that 2025 is so close to being around the corner. I have so many video ideas for end of 2024, beginning of 2025. Like, Oh, I'm so excited. Anyways, thank you guys so much for reading with me today. I had a whole bunch of fun, and I hope that you did too. I hope that your book world is treating you just as wonderfully as mine treat me, and I cannot wait to talk to you next Wednesday. Bye!